10 raw truths about human nature. 1. Forgiveness is only possible after we feel avenged. The difficulty in forgiving is a profound and complex phenomenon that affects many people on different levels. In our quest for justice and balance, we often cling to the belief that the world must reward good actions and punish bad ones. This need for moral order leads us to conclude that forgiveness can be seen as a form of weakness or betrayal of our own convictions about what is fair. Forgiveness, though widely discussed and desired, is a monumental task. Often, the negative emotions that arise from real offenses or harm are compounded by our lack of proper tools to manage them. However, this lack of understanding is not innate. In many ways, it is a result of a lack of emotional education. We grow up in environments where we are not taught to process feelings like pain, anger, or disappointment. Instead, we are encouraged to ignore or repress them, which translates into a self-deception that proves counterproductive. Denying these emotions only intensifies them, trapping us in a cycle of internal suffering. This repression often becomes a defense mechanism that not only distances us from the true act of forgiveness, but also hinders our personal growth. We are taught to fear our emotions, to consider them something shameful to be hidden rather than understood and accepted as a natural part of the human experience. It is essential to reconfigure our relationship with forgiveness and our negative emotions. Instead of seeing forgiveness as a renunciation of justice, we can begin to understand it as an act of personal liberation. In forgiving, we not only find inner peace, but also choose to demobilize the power that wound exerts over our lives. Learning to manage our emotions, allowing ourselves to feel and express what hurts us without shame or guilt, is a crucial step in this process. True courage lies in facing our emotions, embracing them, and transforming them into a force for growth. If, as a society, we begin to educate about emotional intelligence and provide tools for handling conflicts and internal strife, we could break the cycle of repression. Thus, forgiveness could emerge not as a concession, but as a powerful act of love towards ourselves and others, allowing the weight of resentment to dissolve and a new path of healing to bloom. 2. Sooner or later, everyone will let you down. The human experience is filled with relationships and connections that are, at their core, valuable and enriching. However, it is a common reality that sooner or later, anyone can disappoint you. In critical moments, when difficult decisions arise, that person may face a dilemma: to follow their own interests or prioritize the relationship and your needs. It is in these circumstances that human nature is revealed, often manifesting the internal struggle between loyalty and self-preservation. This phenomenon does not necessarily stem from malicious intent. Rather, it derives from the instinctive need for survival and personal well-being that we all share. In life, it is natural for priorities to shift and for people to face situations where they must make decisions that could jeopardize their own goals or desires. The crucial thing here is to recognize that someone choosing their own interests does not always mean they do not value or care for you. However, it is essential to understand that life is filled with nuances, and the decisions people make are influenced by their experiences, fears, and aspirations. In this sense, learning to manage our expectations can be liberating. Instead of adopting a pessimistic perspective that leads us to distrust others, we could opt for a more empathetic view. By understanding that we are all ultimately in search of what we believe is best for ourselves, we can strengthen our relationships by creating a space for dialogue and understanding. All of this, of course, without losing sight of our own needs and values. Moreover, this acknowledgement allows us to establish healthy boundaries in our relationships, Fostering an environment where both parties can be honest about their needs and priorities can enrich interpersonal connections. Thus, while the potential for disappointment always exists, it also opens the door to more honest and authentic relationships, where each individual can coexist and thrive, consciously choosing to support one another without sacrificing their own essence. So, while the possibility of failing may be part of the human experience, it also provides us with the opportunity to learn, grow, and ultimately build stronger and more meaningful relationships. 3. The impermanence of emotions. It is essential to recognize that emotions, both our own and those of others, are as fleeting as the clouds that cross the sky. People's opinions and behaviors are in constant transformation, influenced by countless external and internal factors. We must accept this reality and not allow our reactions to depend on the emotional ebb and flow of others. Another person's opinion can be as transient as a breath, and therefore, we should not cling to it or allow it to alter our inner peace. By cultivating this understanding, we free ourselves from the need to seek approval or response from others, finding stability in our own reason and virtue. Remember, the only power we truly possess is over our own emotions and choices. What others think is beyond our control. For we all feel envy, no matter how well we try to hide it from ourselves. Envy, that subtle shadow that slips into our hearts, drives us to see our peers not as companions on the journey, but as rivals in an endless competition. We observe those around us with the hope that their light does not shine brighter than ours. This need to feel superior, to erect barriers so that no one surpasses our threshold, is a dangerous craving, a construct of our ego. When we see someone excel in an area where we believe we are strong, an almost instinctual urge arises within us to minimize their achievements and discredit their efforts, especially if this person is from our inner circle, whom we've always perceived as on the same level. That willingness to help, which we often proclaim with fervor, can turn into a tool to feed our own vanity. We feel generous in offering support, but often that generosity is conditioned by the need to maintain a favorable status quo. If someone approaches us, even seeking a simple favor, we only comply if we believe it won't threaten our self-perception. It is curious how a slight glimpse of superiority can transform our desire to help into reluctance. When we notice someone who surpasses us, even in just one trait, we may feel the temptation to retreat and close ourselves off. Indifference becomes the refuge of those who fear that their own worth will blur in the presence of someone else's greatness. However, understanding that we are all vulnerable and that everyone carries their own battles can offer a pathway towards a richer and more authentic life. If we only allowed ourselves to celebrate the successes of others, perhaps we would find strength in connection, humility and admiration, and above all, true growth that arises from mutual support. Thus, the challenge lies in freeing ourselves from that chain that binds us to envy and opening our hearts without fear of loss. For in the deep breath of existence, true triumph is not measured in comparisons, but in the ability to lift each other up together in our human complexity. 5. Growth and evolution in relationships are a natural part of our lives. The dynamics between people change over time, and this is a truth that must be accepted. Relationships shift in shape, intensity, and even meaning over time. Sometimes people evolve and their priorities change, which can lead to shifts in dynamics of friendship, love, or even family. These transformations can be both natural and necessary, as each individual grows and develops in different directions. It is crucial to acknowledge that not all relationships are destined to endure in their original form. Some may deepen and become more meaningful, while others may fade or transform into less intense forms of connection. Open and honest communication is key to navigating these transitions, allowing both parties to express their needs and feelings. Furthermore, we must remember that change can also bring new opportunities. The end of a relationship does not always imply loss. It can pave the way for new friendships, experiences, and learning that enrich our lives. Ultimately, accepting that relationships are fluid helps us adapt better and appreciate each stage, whether it involves mutual growth or farewell. Adapting to change and enjoying the process can be one of the greatest gifts life offers us. 6. People do not tolerate criticism. Criticism is a poison that harms not only the object of its attack, but also poisons the critic. What truly matters is how you interpret and respond to life's challenges. Instead of criticizing yourself or others, focus on finding positive aspects in each situation. Cultivate the virtue of acceptance. When facing negative comments, look within for 5 virtues that highlight your character. When you focus on the positive, you not only elevate yourself, but also inspire others. Instead of rushing to offer judgments or corrections, seek to understand. When someone shares their feelings, offer your full attention and listen without interruption. Do not force the conversation in a particular direction, as each individual has their own process. True greatness lies in offering support and genuine empathy. Developing trust in relationships is an art that is cultivated with patience and respect. Although many justify criticism by claiming they are just helping others and that it's constructive criticism, its positive effect is scarce. Criticism seldom leads to growth. Instead, it creates walls between people. Remember that even if criticizing seems to provide moments of clarity, it often causes emotional distance. If you wish to understand someone's shortcomings, it is better for them to seek that answer within themselves or for another person to do so. Reflect on the last time you received criticism. Did it really foster a deeper connection? The answer is clear. Instead of feeling closer to that person, you felt hurt and resentful. By criticizing, we perpetuate the cycle of resentment and distrust. If you wish to foster love, the wisest course is to refrain from making judgments. In the journey towards true wisdom, remember that being loved and respected begins with cultivating a heart that does not criticize but embraces and elevates. The less you allow yourself to fall into the trap of criticism, the easier it will be for others to recognize and value your essence. This is a lesson worth adopting. Avoid criticism, even when presented with the best intentions. In doing so, you will forge relationships based on authenticity and profound understanding. 7. Those who offer their help or forgiveness without being asked always end up losing standing and are respected less. The harsh and often painful truth about interpersonal relationships is that when someone takes the initiative to help another without being asked, they are often perceived as weak. This happens because many times, when someone receives a favor, they do not see it as a selfless act of kindness. Instead, the person who receives help feels they owe debts or responsibilities, and to protect their pride, they prefer to justify the action based on their own perception. The reality is that those who are extremely kind and helpful are rarely admired or imitated. Their kindness does not translate into respect or recognition. This does not apply, of course, to situations where help is requested. In those instances, the dynamic changes and the act of helping is accepted without reservations. Therefore, if a friend or family member needs help, it is best to wait for them to ask for it. Taking the initiative without a prior request can not only generate resentment or negative emotions, but also lead to the helper being seen as someone without character or weak. In the game of relationships, it is crucial to understand that a sense of pride and the perception of strength often prevail, over the intention to do good. The same goes for forgiving people who have not come to ask for forgiveness or shown genuine remorse. It is important to recognize that the act of forgiving can be complex, especially when it involves situations where the other party has not yet acknowledged the harm they have caused. Offering forgiveness to people who have not sought it and who do not take responsibility for their actions can complicate the restoration of the relationship and the inner peace of the one who forgives. Just as in the need to ask for forgiveness, mutual acknowledgement of the harm is crucial for both parties to move forward and heal. 8. Relationships are challenging, complex, and difficult because people, with all our traumas, fears, thoughts, and emotions, are complex. Human relationships are a battleground where our virtues and vices clash, challenging us to confront our own weaknesses. In each interaction, we not only discover others, but also unveil hidden aspects of our own nature. This provides us with an invaluable opportunity for growth. We must accept that interpersonal relationships are inherently complicated. They are frequently laden with misunderstandings and unmet expectations. In this context, it is essential to cultivate patience and empathy. Instead of allowing conflict to consume us, let us seek understanding. Remember that each person acts from their own frame of reference, influenced by their own experiences and suffering. By adopting this perspective, we can see relationships as an exercise in self-control and reflection. Each challenge in our interactions reminds us that true wisdom lies in how we respond to the actions of others. Instead of letting emotions carry us away, we can choose calmness and rationality, understanding that self-mastery is our true power in the face of interpersonal adversity. 9. We cannot change others. It is essential to recognize an inescapable truth. We have no power over the actions and thoughts of others. In our eagerness to mold those around us according to our ideals, we often find ourselves trapped in frustration and conflict. People are who they are, with their virtues and flaws, and trying to force them to change is a futile effort that only distances us from inner peace. It is crucial to direct our energy toward what we can control, our own thoughts and actions. Instead of wasting time and energy trying to transform others, we should focus on our personal improvement. Accepting others as they are, with their imperfections, is the first step towards serenity. Remember that each of us is a unique being, and just as we wish to be accepted for our particularities, we must also practice that same acceptance toward others. In this way, we free our spirit from the weight of judgment and the desire for control, allowing ourselves to cultivate virtues that reflect our true nature. In the art of acceptance, we find the wisdom necessary to live in harmony with the world around us. The impermanence, people change, and often we cannot control these transformations. Accepting that relationships and situations are temporary helps us deal with loss and disappointment. 10. We are selfish beings. Human selfishness is a deep and complex topic that has been studied in various disciplines such as psychology, sociology, and philosophy. The idea that people primarily act based on their own interests does not imply that they are inherently bad, but rather that it is a characteristic of human nature to seek one's own well-being. Understanding this tendency can be liberating and help moderate our expectations of others. In many interactions, we may find that behaviors that seem selfish to us can actually be manifestations of basic instincts for survival and the need for personal satisfaction. This understanding can lead us to adopt a more empathetic perspective toward the actions of others. Furthermore, this recognition of selfishness can also impact our interpersonal relationships. Instead of getting frustrated when someone acts in their own interest, we can seek ways to align our goals with those of others. This not only fosters more effective communication, but can also lead to deeper and more meaningful collaborations. Acknowledging that selfishness is part of the human condition does not mean resigning ourselves, but rather understanding human behavior to foster healthier and more constructive interactions. By moderating our expectations, we can cultivate greater patience and compassion toward others, which can enrich our relationships and promote a more cooperative environment. In conclusion, by facing and accepting these hard truths about people, we not only become more aware of the reality around us, but also equip ourselves with valuable tools to navigate the complexity of human relationships. This acceptance propels us to cultivate empathy, resilience, and an authenticity that will allow us to connect more deeply and meaningfully with others. By doing so, we transform this knowledge into a path toward personal growth and inner peace. Let us remember that understanding, even of the most difficult truths, is key to forging a stronger character and a fuller life.